Hello and welcome to the latest episode of The Hex with John Arnold, Armand Kafai, and Daniel Robertson. Don't forget, smash the like button. We are talking everything men's national team this week, World Cup, qualifying, etc. So you got to like that content. Of course, let us know in the comments what you think about everything we're talking about today. Who's your team to watch? What's your player position battle to watch? And anything else we are talking about today that you want to chime in on. As I said, we've got John back from his vacation. We've got so much to talk about, so let's get into it. Well, the vibes are good overall as we head into the international window, the final international window before the World Cup, guys. That is so crazy to think about. And first off, we're going to go heavy on the national team content today. We'll talk a little MLS later, but we're going to go heavy on the national team content. And when we last left the national team, the vibes were very high, coming off of 2 wins over World Cup teams in Paraguay and Uruguay. It's easy to forget about that because it was so many months ago.
Like a long time ago, D-Rob.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. So, Armand, as we head into this window against Belgium and Portugal, the last one before the World Cup roster comes out, scale of 1 to 10, where is your USMNT vibe check?
I'd probably have it at a 7 or 8, just kind of right where we left off. I mean, nothing's really changed, right? Since we haven't really seen the team play since then, so there's not really much body of work to go into. Now, this could maybe wreck the kind of vibe these next 2 games with how they go against Portugal or Belgium and then Portugal. But overall, I think the vibes are pretty good. It seems like the U.S. has kind of finally figured out this system. We went from talking about they switched this back 3 system to, now they're using it heavily to now this works and it makes sense. So I feel like the vibes are pretty high. We're not talking about Pochettino flirting with other places, even though seems like he's linked with Spurs.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Bounds.
If he was
He said in the keep he misses the Premier League, so I mean, it doesn't seem like he'll be gone for long. But
he's
I
not
agree
leaving
with you
before
that
the World Cup, though.
Right,
he's not leaving for the World Cup. I mean, that was the doomsday scenario, right? If he was going to leave before the World Cup,
if he's picked Spurs again, I mean, coach of the championship, see some new stadiums.
I have to keep them from getting relegated.
But yeah, I mean, I think the vibes are pretty strong, especially from where they were like a few months ago, where we were like, this is terrible. Like, what is going on? There's no big controversies. There's no big beef. Like, I think it's pretty good.
Well, and I think crucially, Armand, there's no big injuries. There's a couple that you're concerned about, but I mean, I'm talking like you look at Mexico, and it's like, whoa, what's going to happen there? And we'll talk about that a little more. But for me, it's an 8. I think that in international soccer, memory is sometimes short, but it's also the vibe really is dictated by what you did last time. And that game against Uruguay was fantastic. I don't think Valverde was there, but otherwise it was like a pretty strong Uruguay team. Pochettino against a mentor in Bielsa, and they smashed them. It was a fantastic game, and they looked much, much better than Uruguay. And what's changed is that you got a couple more guys doing well in Europe. Balogun is scoring. Pepe's back. Like, it just seems like things are getting better. The only thing I think is like a little off on the vibes, or that could derail the vibes, is I think going into this World Cup, it is going to be the most talked about soccer tournament ever in the U.S. I think it'll be the most, there's going to be the most things happening around it. We talk about, obviously, the political situation. Mm-hmm. I think that'll dent the vibes a little bit for the U.S. team. You could get into some World Baseball Classic territory where if all of a sudden you start talking about you're playing for the troops and hope they go win the war or whatever. But I think that like most soccer players have been in international sports long enough to understand that international sports, you're playing for the people and that you don't want to say something that's going to put you in a difficult situation. I think this is the type of team where most of these guys are based abroad, have been in these situations where they're meeting people from all these different countries. I guess that happens in a baseball locker room, but yeah, I think it's different. So to me, the vibes are great and they should be. There's no real reason to dent them.
Do we worry though that we're basing too much off of 1 or 2 games that happened 4 months ago?
But I don't think it's 1 or 2, man. The whole fall was good.
Well, but at the same time, it was okay, maybe 3 games, but those were against not as good opponents. I mean, Uruguay maybe on the level, but not as good opponents. I'm just playing devil's advocate here to say the results of these games, like, can they dampen that? And I'm not talking about the performances, but I'm talking about like the actual results. If you don't win these games, does a 7 go down to maybe a 6? I don't know. I'm at a 6, by the way.
Okay.
I'm at a 6 right now because I don't want to overreact. And guys, one thing we haven't mentioned that is a little maybe sneaking into a little bit of a crisis, that goalkeeper position, because it has always been the strength of the national team. Did you see Matt Freese last weekend, John? You may have been coming back from Italy. You may have had a little bit too much espresso on the brain.
What, he conceded to Messi?
Matt, an ugly goal, and he hasn't
not a
been
problem.
looking. He hasn't been looking amazing right now. I think this is probably going into it as if there's one position where you're just a little bit worried, it's that goalkeeper position. So for me, still a 6, but it's all barely passing or barely passing grades. So we'll take it.
I think you're pretty negative
They need a goalkeeper
relative to the group.
They need a goalkeeper. It's on a knife edge. It's on a knife edge. That's why I'm so fascinated by these games, because I think it's a little bit. It's basing a lot off of.
So if they come out with a draw in both these games,
yeah,
would you be thrilled? Would that boost your thing up?
Yeah.
What if they lose both? As long as they lose both games close.
Yeah, as long as they play well. And I think the most important thing is that the back five looks competent still. If the back five looks competent still, great. Individually speaking, lots of names in this group. And I would say, we look at, John, you mentioned there's no major injuries right now, but 3 guys that are probably on, 2 of them for sure on the roster, 1 on the fringe, not playing. Haji Wright, Tyler Adams, Serginho Dest, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Musa, Sargent, maybe on the fringe. But you look at this roster and there's probably 3 spots pretty heavily up for grabs. So looking at the players who have the most to gain, John, which player are you saying from these 2 games has the most to gain?
I'm looking at Mark McKenzie because this is a guy who wasn't super relevant, I guess, in the previous tenure. Pochettino comes in and he's like, that's my guy. And then he wasn't. But think back to when we were watching U.S. soccer in 2014, the 2018 cycle, 2022. If you had said, we have a center back who's playing in various places in a back 3 every single weekend, 90 minutes in Ligue 1, you've been like, well, that guy's got to start. Like that is going, and there have been like I think maybe we overlook like Boca Negra was like an extremely consistent defender. There's other really good defenders that have come through the U.S. So Kuchionye would play at an extremely high level, consistent. But like I do think if you'd had a regular center back starting in Ligue 1, you'd be like, heck yeah, we got to get this guy in there. And I think he sort of has that opportunity because, well, it seems like we sort of feel like the back line might be settled. The 3 center backs. I mean, look, like people think Tim Ream. Right? Like, is he going to make it? Is he have the fitness? And if McKenzie can show that he's a better option than Ream, I don't think there's any romanticism necessarily where Pochettino says, I got to keep him in there. Even though he's a veteran player, you're going to want him on the roster to be a good locker room presence. Maybe you feel comfortable putting him on the field. But if McKenzie can get into a game and shut down Paulinho against Portugal, if he can shut down Belgium's attack, if he gets those opportunities and makes the most of them, I think there's a real chance for him to be a big factor in the roster. And I'm not so sure we really saw that coming in the fall.
Yeah, and I'll take the next one here because it's still on the same back line, and I think I mentioned in our last segment that is one huge thing to watch is those 3 at the back, because Chris Richards, obviously his name is written in pen. He's right in the middle of that back line, and Mark McKenzie on one side. But what did the player I think that has the most to gain is Alex Freeman, because he gained the most from the last camp they had, I think, when he had the best player on the field probably against Uruguay. He had a goal, assist, he was everywhere, and he was playing as a center back, Armand. He had Serginho Dest on the right side, and that to me, I think there's a chance there that he could start a World Cup game in the games that you are on the front foot and you're trying to attack. I think he has a real opportunity there. We saw it once. We don't overreact for once. If he does it again against Belgium or Portugal, and I really hope Pochettino puts him in that center back role, I think we might see him at right back because Dest is out. And I know that Joe Scally is a guy who a lot of people have as like another guy that maybe he's going to lose that spot if Dest comes in when we talk about those roster battles. To me, it's seeing, can Alex Freeman, who hasn't been playing a ton at Villarreal, but taking that step up, he's training, etc. Let's see if he can do it again, because if he does, I think he's absolutely in line for a starting spot, Armand.
The only question I have with Freeman, is maybe it's, I don't know if it's as much of a question as I think you alluded to it. is where he's going to play, right? Because Dest is going to be on the kind of what they say it might be on the. He has a minor injury, so I think it was a minor. Or was Adams?
There's no
Adams
minor hamstring injury.
Yeah, they said they expect him back, I believe, in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the regular season, so like early May.
So it'll be tight for Dest. Actually, it was Adams that had the minor injury. My mistake there. So you have Freeman at that right kind of wing back position, kind of going up and down, and then Scally, who's been playing center back almost a lot on our push, tucking in when he was a left back, kind of forming that back three. So I feel like, I think he is the most approved at that right back position, that wing back position, actually, compared to that center back.
To me, there's almost more responsibility in that position than if he's at center back next to a Chris Richards who can cover for him, and he doesn't have to think that much. Whereas at right back, there's a lot more. There's a lot to process there.
You have an attacking responsibility, which I think is one of the strong points of Alex Freeman. So I'm really interested to see how that's going to shake out. For me, it's a guy that we kind of we weren't really respectful of, maybe.
Oh,
big Pat Agyemang is my player to watch, and why, or the player to gain, and why him? And it seems like the striker position is going to be settled. It's going to be Balogun, but can Pat Agyemang prove himself in these games where, look, Portugal and Belgium are better than the U.S. I think that's pretty clear to me when it comes to talent perspective. Maybe not systemically, but talent-wise, they're better than the U.S. The U.S. is going to face an opponent like this at some point in the World Cup.
Belgium could be their round of 32 opponent.
Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. When you get into these situations where you're playing a team that's better, and let's say you jump out to a lead, can you bring a guy on that can kind of close out the game? Can you bring a guy on that can help you chase that game? In a game again like Australia or a team that's a little bit weaker, that you're going to have a lot more of the ball. It's a little bit more different of a situation. The U.S. won't have a lot of the ball. The U.S. will more than likely be on the back foot, it seems like, and they're going to have to absorb pressure and have an outlet up top. Can Pat Agyemang be that guy maybe off the bench? I'm not saying he's going to be a starter, but can he be a guy off the bench to maybe win balls, flick, calm the game down, etc.? You need pieces like that when you're building a World Cup roster. And he has 10 goals at Derby. He's actually been playing really good in the championship ever since his move. He hasn't scored in the last month, but he's been starting week in and week out. Can he claim a spot on the roster where we talk about a guy like Pepe, we talk about like Balogun, who we think is going to be a starter, Josh Sargent in the mix?
Well, I think he's competing with Haji Wright.
Yeah.
It's like, if Haji Wright is healthy, do you take him or Agyemang?
Yeah, and they offer such different things, but Haji Wright's the leading scorer in the championship.
Right, exactly.
So, it's and obviously has a little bit of an injury, but I don't think he's an injury worry for the World Cup, and maybe that's where those because they can call in obviously a bigger group than 26 for those friendlies right before the World Cup. So maybe that is one of those things that you see where they're the last two guys. John, I see you cringing.
I don't think they're going to do that, man.
You don't think so?
I don't think. I get I don't know, but I get the impression that they're just going to do the squad. But who knows?
Well, and that's where hopefully in these games we do see different. You mentioned like, would I be happy with 2 draws? I'd almost be happy if one game we're winning in the last 15 minutes and the other game we're losing in the last 15 minutes, because you want to be able to see those different situations. Because you talk about, and we may mention this in a minute, but you talk about a guy like Pepe, who Pepe is not necessarily a forward you bring on to hold a lead. Pepe is a guy that you bring on to clog the goals back, whereas Agyemang is the guy that you bring on to hold the ball up, draw fouls, etc. So having those two scenarios could be nice.
It's almost like a yin and yang.
Yeah. Very philosophical. I like that. Last U.S. men's national team segment, and we mentioned this in the group chat. They're only going to play one game before we record again, so we'll have Saturday's game to analyze, and then look ahead to the Portugal game next Tuesday, I believe it is. Yep. We talked about the players, John, but now let's talk about the actual position battles. We know 20 out of the 23 players probably that are going to get outfield players that are probably going to get called up. Who's going to play, though, in those games? Which position battle are you paying attention to most over this week?
I kind of didn't have I didn't want to steal y'all's better, and I just said attacker. I think Armand is going to kind of philosophize more. But I actually think that like having Weston McKennie back is awesome for the U.S., but like it's sort of an interesting conundrum where he's been doing a bit of everything for Juventus. I was actually reading Gazzetta that like they think he's going to play this like Michel Platini role next year because they think they're going to sign a 10 and then
What a
he's
time
going
to
be
be
like
alive.
so like that's Weston McKennie and maybe he'll be president of CONCACAF like Platini went on to be the president of UEFA, you know, fingers crossed, I guess. But no, I think that like when he's back, you have this interesting question of like where do you play him? And I think it's like, well, you could just play him. I think the most logical place is to play him next to Pulisic as the kind of second 10. But then, like, okay, where does that leave Tim Weah?
Right.
Well, he could maybe be there, and it's okay. But like, what about? So I think, like, in a way, you have a good problem, but that attacker just like spot. I think there's spots for attackers to prove themselves. And while you're saying like, hey, like the roster's kind of set, except for some of these players that we mentioned, I do think that like minutes are not set,
Right.
And even if starts seem set, the way that the U.S. plays and who's going to best serve in the various scenarios they're going to be in at the World Cup, I think are really up in the air. So to me, like I think Weston starts. I think Weston plays almost every minute of the tournament if he can, but like where he's at will sort of force, I think, attacking players into a competition like Malik Tillman, obviously, like into competitions for minutes that perhaps a couple months ago we weren't really foreseeing when you think that, oh, Weston's going to be in the midfield next to Tyler Adams.
I will say too, this is that reminded me of something. I was on good friend of the show, Tyler Kern's Sunset Soccer Hour podcast, and definitely subscribe to them as well. And I pointed out something I thought makes sense here too. You mentioned all of the options that the U.S. has, and I remember talking to Tyler about how different it is and what a luxury it is to have Pochettino as the coach now, because in the past it wasn't so much, I got to figure out what I'm going to do with all these options. It's like, I got these 11 players that are really good, and I got to figure out how to get a result with these 11 players. Now it's, I've got these 16 players, and I got to figure out how to turn these guys into the highest level they can. And I think it's nice that you have a guy like Pochettino there to make those decisions, because I think he's better equipped to do that than a guy like Greg Berhalter was at the time, Armand. And John alluded to it. You're kind of thinking the same area in midfield.
I'm thinking the same. Just because, again, what Weston has done at Juventus, right? Like, playing almost that second striker where you can have him be flexible. It's like, okay, who's going to be that attacking mid? Is it going to be Tillman and Pulisic? I mean, I think one of them is already done. It's Pulisic.
Tillman's doing it in the Champions League too. That's
exactly. So is it going to be Tillman and Pulisic? Is it going to be Pulisic and McKennie? Do you put Tillman in there, then drop Weston a little bit deeper and have him pair with someone else? The question is, what two is going to work well with whoever's a forward up top? What I like about Weston is that he's a player that can cover a lot of ground. And that's something that is going to be super important in some matches. But there are going to be some matches where you don't really need to cover as much ground. Again, we saw them play Australia, where Australia sits in a low block and will sit in a low block. That's the way that they want to play. Mm-hmm. Do you plug someone else in there and have Weston in the center as a center mid? I want to see what attacking duo makes sense and how they utilize that attacking duo as well too. Because putting McKennie in there with what he's done at Juventus versus Tillman in there, those are two different styles and two different options that you have, right? You can almost have McKennie as a second forward if you wanted to in some situations, where Tillman, I think, is going to sit below him as a natural 10, or below where for Balogun, let's say, for example, as a natural 10. So I'm interested to see what is the partner next to Pulisic. Will it be McKennie or will it be Malik Tillman in this? I want to lean towards McKennie, just again with the versatility that he provides on the field. But I'm not 100% sure if. And John, I think you also mentioned this with Tim Weah in the mix. I just kind of came in my mind, is Tim Weah your right wing back? And then do you have Alex Freeman, as you mentioned, John, or Daniel, as your center back? And then you have him covering the ground.
One writer had his projected 11 with Tim Weah at center back, which
that had to be an error, right? Like that was was that a bit or
I believe it was Doug McIntyre, which
but again, like that's an error, right?
Doug knows his stuff, man.
Yeah, Doug knows. I'm not going to question Doug. So
if Tim Weah is a center back, then
that'd be kind of wild. But yeah, guys, I'm looking just a little bit farther, a little bit behind that, because we're going to have two defensive midfielders, right? Like that's pretty clear that there's going to be kind of two holding mids, correct? So Tyler Adams isn't in this camp, but you've really got, okay, Tessman, Adams. Weston could play that role. Johnny Cardoso, who's having a big, this is a big camp for Johnny Cardoso. Don't forget Aiden Morris, who is playing every minute, week in and week out for one of the best teams in the championship. No reason why he can't push his name in there. Sebastian Berhalter, could he push his name in there? Again, those guys are probably on the fringe. They're one injury away, though, from one red card, one pulled hamstring in a friendly before the World Cup, anything like that from playing key minutes. Is it Tessman and Adams? Is it Adams and Cardoso? Is it Tessman and Cardoso? Is it Weston and Tessman? There's a lot you can do.
The Christian Roldan disrespect, Daniel.
Well, look, that's a whole nother topic. But you look at Roldan as a guy who, how does he? Is he?
He's
really
a guy
gonna,
I think you bring off the bench and to muck up the game.
Is he going to
when
be
you're up? Or,
is he going to be the one that Tyler Adams takes a spot on the roster? Probably. We'll see. But plenty of battles, so much to watch. Every spot on the field, it's going to be awesome. All right, let's move outside the U.S. borders now, and let's talk about the rest of CONCACAF, the qualifying playoffs. This is John's bag. The qualifying playoffs are this obviously going on this week in Mexico. There's also Canada with some big friendlies. Mexico is reopening the Azteca, by the way. John, is it like ready? Has there been...
Yeah, it actually, I mean, like, I've seen some, like, whoops, like, some guy, in charge of doing something in a suite, like, leaked this video, and it's like, yeah, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and it's not like the bar is not that high here for Azteca, right? I mean, we've been there. It was kind of falling apart a little bit beforehand. No Ronaldo though, so I saw the ticket scalpers are very unhappy.
It dipped. Our buddy Kenya.
They might.
Yeah, RIP Kenya.
Oh yeah.
He's not dead.
Died.
He's not dead.
His
profits.
profits.
Listening, that was our scalper that got us into the Super
Clásico. After they canceled the tickets we had purchased legitimately.
Yes, that's when we scalp tickets for America Chivas. But anyways, John, which North American team, which CONCACAF team in this 2-week cycle or 2-week window, but besides the U.S., which team has the biggest fortnight ahead?
Armand and I have the same answer. It's Mexico. I think that when you look at Mexico's team and the injury absences that they've suffered, they know that Marcel Ruiz is not going to the World Cup. Tore his ACL in that game against San Diego FC. He was going to start. Gilberto Mora, probably going to make it to the World Cup, but we don't really know. There's not a lot that's coming out. He's only 17, bright future ahead, but has this sports hernia groin situation that, like, he's not there.
It's not great.
Edson Alvarez, maybe your most important player. Not playing right now, had a weird mystery ankle injury that they think they've fixed for surgery. He's not back on the field. So you have your starting midfield. It's not there. Now, the good news for Mexico is there are some alternatives. Guys like Obed Vargas, who is now a La Liga player, right? Like, suddenly he's an option. So, he might get an opportunity in this game. But these are the types of things that you need to see and need to get right. I mean, Luis Angel Malagón, another injury.
Yeah.
The goalkeeper, he was kind of fighting for the starting place. Now it looks like Talar Rangel will be the starter for Mexico. So it's like, we're still starting goalkeeper. You still have Ochoa. He's in this squad. Wow. So, like, you should be okay at goalkeeper, but that was a guy who you thought might be a number one, and then he does his Achilles and it's over. So it just feels like it's stacking up for Mexico. How do you kind of like get that feeling out? You talk about the vibe check. How do you beat Portugal when the Azteca reopens, right?
It's still the Azteca. It's still the Azteca.
If you put the beating on Portugal at home, the stadiums reopen, and then you can kind of say, even if you don't do well in Chicago against Belgium, I think you say, well, that's exactly what we're going to do in game one of the World Cup. I don't know why you have to cut a wrestling promo like I'm doing.
Yeah,
but no, I mean, I think that's the mentality. That's the attitude, right, Armand? I mean, you also think that this is the biggest, Mexico has the biggest window when we look at the CONCACAF teams. These games against Portugal and Belgium, it just feels like they have to reverse the bad vibes. And
they
Armand,
did.
Remember, they didn't win any games in the fall.
No, exactly. But they had that 4-0 win against Iceland. The caveat to that is, it was a not a really good FIFA window.
They beat Bolivia and Panama too.
Yeah. Exactly. So the thing I'm worried about, though, John, and I want your opinion on this, is the attack. Because Alexis Vega is still like coming off of his injury, right? Like he's still getting the form. Bertarame hasn't scored for Miami at all, and he's kind of feeling a little snake bitten. Of course, still have Raul Jimenez there and
He's on
Hormiga
fire. He's
and
looking.
Hormiga Gonzalez, but like the rest of the attack is just kind of I don't think it's great.
It's a fair concern because I think we've also seen sort of struggles with creativity. And like I mentioned, hey, like Gilberto Mora, if he's healthy, you start him at the World Cup as a 17-year-old. Another guy like Brian Gutierrez, we were all maybe watching on Apple TV last year when he was playing for Chicago. And now all of a sudden, like, not only is he a lock for the roster, like you're looking at like who is going to be creative in this squad. And it's like, it might be him. Like he might have to kind of be the straw that stirs the drink. I think Alexis Vega will be fine, but he does have like an injury history and he hasn't really excelled for the national team. Like that's never been exactly what he's been able to do. Although you wonder if some of these injuries, some of the lack of creativity maybe clears a way for him to be even more influential, to have him get a bigger role. Another like ex-MLS guy who plays at Chivas, Efrain Alvarez, like could he be an important like figure? I don't know. But
and that's the thing. Like when it comes, like you said, a vibe check for Mexico, for me, it would be like a 4 or 5.
Yeah, I mean,
just
three
with,
or four
with the brutal injury. And guys, like if I told you that after what we saw in the Gold Cup in the summer, you'd be like, "What the hell are you talking about, man?" They just beat the U.S. in the Gold Cup. They're super confident. Looks like they're flowing. And now with these brutal injuries that happened on the same day, right? It was Malagon's injury
one day apart.
It happened the same CCC window. It's just brutal, and now you have to rebuild an identity when you not rebuild, but like you have to build a lineup essentially where you lose 2 of your starters. That's massive.
I mean, they've got Fidalgo in, so that's good news for the midfield. I mean, you talk about a two-way player, like he can definitely do that. But like Charlie Rodriguez, who Mexico fans don't want to see in the national, all of a sudden it's like he probably has to go to the World Cup. Like he probably has to make the roster, and like maybe
Hector Herrera started for Houston.
That's not going to happen, but no, I mean, I think when you look at some of these other players, it's just going to have to come from them. And I mean, like even like a guy like Efrain, who's not in the roster, like do you need him?
Well, Mexico is qualified for the World Cup. So the team for me in CONCACAF that has the biggest window, it's got to be Jamaica, guys, because they are playing for history. They've never qualified for the World Cup. They've never been there.
1998, bro.
Oh, well, did I read it wrong?
Yeah, you did.
Well,
I mean,
I'm going to leave this in. I'm going to leave this in to shame myself for my knowledge, but they haven't been to the World Cup in over
since 1998.
Since 1998, and there's a lot more to it than that, though, for Jamaica, it feels like. And correct me if I'm wrong, John, but this feels to me like the kind of thing where if you can qualify, it sets you up for many, many cycles to come, because Jamaica has all these dual nationals. And remember, they are playing New Caledonia, which, look, you think they will get through against New Caledonia. Then they play the Congo in Guadalajara, and that is a game it's going to be a battle. But
I like how you set it up like the fans, the DR Congo fans in Guadalajara.
Right. Yeah,
but no, it's a tough game. It's a really tough game.
They're going to be rolling, but no, it's going to be a battle. Assuming they get to that game, it's going to be an absolute battle. But it is a winnable game for Jamaica, without a doubt. And if they can qualify for the World Cup, all these dual nationals that always have one toe in the water, one toe out, the Max Aarons of the world, the Mason Greenwoods of the world, a lot of different guys, maybe. Who knows what could happen if they can qualify and get these players in. And when you look at the group that they would fall into, it would be Portugal, Uzbekistan, and Colombia. In a World Cup where 3 points might get you to the knockout round, suddenly everything is open for Jamaica, and their first game in the World Cup, if they qualify, would be against Portugal in Houston. What a huge just stage for Caribbean soccer if Jamaica can get through this, John. For me, that's just, I want to see them win.
Yeah, me too. We're going to talk about other teams we want to see win. Of course, I want Jamaica to get through. To me, like, yes, in a funny way, I actually think that there's some elements against what you're saying, where, like, yes, of course, I think if they make the World Cup, dual nationals would join up. But, like, they had Steve McLaren. They had this English-based coach. They had England influences. Sure. And now McLaren quits after the Curaçao game. And who do they hire? A dude who's been kicking around for 15, 20 years in Jamaican soccer. And who does he hire as his assistants? Basically, every Jamaican coach that's in kind of the diaspora. He brings back Miguel Coley, who I'm sure he got back at the right time with the violence in the Middle East. He brings Aaron Lawrence, the former 1998 goalkeeper, backup goalkeeper. He gets in as the goalkeeper coach, so it feels like they're kind of trying to bring it back to the roots. But of course, players like Leon Bailey are still there. Other dual nationals are still there who represent Jamaica and have represented Jamaica. So I think it's like a big opportunity for kind of like obviously for national pride, but also for like pride in what the Jamaican Federation has been doing, what the Jamaican team has been doing. But I'm not sure it's enough because I don't think their project is convincing enough. And quite frankly, if it was convincing enough, they'd already be in the World Cup. They should have been in the World Cup. And I think they know they missed that opportunity. I got to talk to Andre Blake about it a couple weeks ago. Look, it was like they messed up the qualification cycle. You get the second chance, but it's going to be really difficult against DR Congo. But that battle of Jamaica's attack versus Congo's defense, well, we can talk about it next week.
And we can finally see their cool jerseys in the World Cup, maybe? Instead of just released publicly.
So we've talked about the playoff. We'll see who can get through in that one. We'll see what Mexico can do. But there's playoffs obviously happening in Europe as well. And for some reason, UEFA starting them all at the same time on the same day, which, I mean, big L. Like, how
there's like one, I think Turkey, Romania is early.
Right.
And then everything else is at the same time. Why?
I know, and especially when you're talking about a UEFA who is always playing Champions League. I mean, they could not spread these games out more, but yet you can, and you could easily do Thursday, Sunday, Friday, Monday. Like you could, anyways. They're all going to be happening at the same time, and then there's the Intercontinental playoffs obviously happening in Mexico. Armand, we're gonna say what we want to happen here. Which playoff team that is not qualified yet are you most hoping is coming to North America this summer?
I was torn, Daniel, and I think you know why I was torn. I was torn first off because we saw the passion the Romanian fans had.
Yes.
When there were, and for me on this segment, forget the football. Any team that's gonna come is gonna, I think, play a good game. I want to have people. Or like a fan base that's super fun, super exciting. Like,
well, and
that's my biggest litmus test.
The winner of the Path B bracket will be coming to Dallas, and will be basing in Dallas. Ukraine, exactly. Sweden, Poland, or Albania.
So I want a fun team. Romania, we've seen the passion, right? It was tough. I was like, Italy would be fun, but that's more of a you thing. Tutti. And I'm looking through the list right now. I want to see Ireland in this, man. Like
Heimer Halgerson's then the former Jamaica coach.
Exactly. But like Ireland. What? Have you seen those prices for those tickets for that game in Prague? It's insane.
It's thousands of dollars.
It's more than some of the World Cup games that are going on here
to get into the playoff against Czech Republic on Thursday.
Exactly, and I think Ireland would be such a welcome addition to the World Cup. Their fans would be super fun. It'd be a great atmosphere where they should. I believe they would be playing in the U.S. Is that, am I wrong or right on that? It's not the U.S.'s group.
I'll look it up. Keep going.
I know that Denmark.
I think isn't it Mexico's group?
Denmark would go to Mexico. Yep. So and they do cross, right? Yeah, because Andres Rare, Mexico, if he qualifies, I did a piece for MLS Soccer.
Come on, Ireland, Mexico.
At the Azteca.
That's just fun, man. That's just
so many kids named Patricio in 9 months.
IndyCar on the way up in the.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean, outside of that, seeing Albania in Dallas would have been really fun too. Albania, Japan. Shout out Dua Lipa. But outside of that, that I would love to see Ireland in the World Cup.
All right. Well, you mentioned it. I'm going Italy, of course. I really want to see, of course, my Italian friends, all of i miei amici italiani, viene a Stati Uniti, però I really hope that Italy can win, not only because of my friends that I would love to come over, but guys, Italy has not won a World Cup game since they won the World Cup.
You got to make it to win games, buddy.
They have not made it. They have not won a game since the World Cup final. How insane is that to think about? Italy, of all places. Do I think they're going to do it? Hell no. This Italian team will probably get beat. I do not expect them to advance in the qualification. They've got a tough group. So they're going to start out with Northern Ireland and Bergamo. should be able to win that game, but then they will either have to play Wales or Bosnia in Cardiff or wherever they would play the game in Bosnia. That would be incredibly difficult. They can get through. Do I think they will? No, but the other reason I want them to advance is because, guys, if they advance, do you know what their first game is? It is against Canada in Toronto, the second day of the World Cup. It would be a 3 p.m. kickoff on that Friday afternoon. I mean, and what is the city? I'm not sure if this is still the case, but for the longest time, the city with the largest Italian diaspora outside of Italy was Toronto. What a spectacle that would be. You want to talk about hot tickets, Armand? Italy versus Canada at BMO Field in Toronto, John.
That ticket right now is, I think, one of the most expensive group games.
Because everyone thinks they're going to make it. Like, everyone is penciling in Italy, except for Daniel.
Either way, it's Canada's home opener.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think like a lot of people have been saying Italy's going to be here in Canada, and it's like, well, okay, maybe. We'll see. I'm obviously rooting for Suriname. I went to Suriname. I watched Suriname play qualification in person multiple times. I've watched so many games from that stadium because they actually do stagger the start times. They're always the early one because their time zone is so far ahead of the rest of CONCACAF. Good folks around there. The press corps was lovely to me when I was there, really welcomed me, showed me around, and the players were really sweet as well. I mean, they're talking in their second, third language when I'm doing the interviews, and they really let me tell their stories. So even though that little cluster has some other like kind of romantic teams, Bolivia hasn't been to a World Cup since 1994, which is also in the U.S., of course. They're trying to get back. Iraq, with the difficulties in that region, the difficulties they faced as a country, as a team, and now currently trying to get to Monterrey and figuring all that out. I hope they're sad though, because I think Suriname, I mean, it's a tiny country. They really have dug into obviously the diaspora players based abroad in the Netherlands. When you look at the history of Suriname, a founding member of CONCACAF, long soccer history, and I think that story would get told, probably ripping off my articles to be honest, but that story would get told many times if Suriname does come to the World Cup. So I would welcome it. I hope that more people find out about Suriname because Natio, Bibi non Kraki are in the World Cup.
We can't let an entire Hex go without mentioning MLS and CONCACAF Champions Cup in our final segment of the week. John, you didn't get to lock into the games. Obviously, you were out of the country.
You didn't watch MLS Season Pass on Apple TV?
Dude, I watched all the games this weekend. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, I had MLS and NWSL Power Rankings for ESPN FC. Check it out.
Well, we were flipped because I watched basically every CONCACAF game and did not catch a lot of MLS this weekend. But we want to talk about who had the best combined best and worst weeks of this one. And there was so much to talk about from CONCACAF. And we'll talk about a lot of that in a couple weeks when the quarterfinals, because boy, these matchups, they are all bangers. MLS versus Liga MX in all 4 matches. Armand, who for you had the best and worst weeks of this last week of packed matches?
Well, worst almost was like 100%, depending on how the game ended for Cincinnati in that weird game against Montreal. But for me, that game against Tigres, man, like we were talking about, Daniel, because
you're saying Cincinnati had the worst week.
Cincinnati had the worst week. Yep. I with how the CCC collapse happened, like you I think said it really well. Tigres fans just figure out a way to like suck the ball into the net, and it's just like.
Kudos to whoever was running sound on that game, because sometimes Fox doesn't have the best sound. That sounded like the craziest atmosphere I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, it was. And the way that Cincinnati, they were up so big, and I think they look so disconnected. They had a red card against Montreal as well too with Miles Robinson. They barely squeaked by Montreal at home. Like
they won with 10 men coming from behind.
Montreal's not a good team, man. Montreal's not a good team,
with 10 men and won.
You're defending Cincinnati like
they
with
came
life
from behind with 10 men and won the game
against Montreal.
Okay, but if you're really holding back, look, a lot of teams have gone to El Volcan and S their pants. So that's.
Yeah, but they completely S their pants. Like,
I'm also confused by this narrative that Cincinnati had a good week.
What were you thinking watching those highlights, by the way, John? The Cincinnati Tigres highlights.
I mean, I knew what was going to happen, but I mean, it's dude. Tigres have been an absolute wild roller coaster because they lost that first leg game, they win the second leg, and then they lost to Juarez this weekend.
Yeah,
what's going on?
Armand, who's your biggest winner of the weekend?
I've really enjoyed watching RSL play, and look, I think a lot of people. Look, we can talk about how that San Diego.
The biggest winner is a team that drew.
Exactly. San Diego obviously came off that tough result against Toluca. They had to travel midweek, but RSL beat them on the XG also, and they were away as well. They looked really sharp. I love the ideas that they've been playing. Diego Luna's getting back into form. Glugovi looks really good. Also, Olatunji came back and scored after his freakish eye injury that he had. They look really good, and they were a team that a couple people
Sanabria is better than I expected. I didn't think he was going to fit that well, and he's been a really nice addition. And
you have a vet like Pablo Mastroeni coaching. They look really good, and I've been surprised because I've been kind of watching them week in and week out. Okay, whatever. Oh, okay, they look okay, they actually look pretty sharp. And yes, I know it's a draw, but we talked about San Diego being a really great team, and they are a really great team. And RSL went there. Yes, again, San Diego was on a little bit of a rest disadvantage, but RSL went there and played their game, and man, they could have. I think they could have won that game, to be honest with you. So I was really impressed with them. 5 games in, I'm looking for styles. So
I think my winner has a great style, which is Nashville SC.
Yeah.
They were able to knock Inter Miami out of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. We didn't really have that, even though I think we're all Nashville respecters. I think all three of us kind of picked them as one of our kind of top teams going into the year.
I think I picked Nashville, did I not?
You did not pick Nashville to advance.
Well, I picked something, and you guys were like, okay. "Oh, I'm a soccer romantic." It's gonna be America. I think I picked them. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
Well, anyway, then they beat Orlando City 5-0. Yeah, Griezmann isn't there yet. Oscar Pareja isn't there yet. But this was, we talk about, teams are tired coming off the CONCACAF Champions Cup during the week. And, you could understand if the focus wasn't there against a bad, they scored in the 5th minute. They kept scoring. Sam Surridge, I think he'll win Golden Boot this year. He's already leading it. And I think he'll probably end with more goals than Messi because I think Messi's going to be quite busy and distracted with other things. The loser is Miami. They said all off season, and maybe this was some media sort of narrative, but Jorge Mas came out after they won the MLS Cup and said, our focus is the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And they had a good off season, but they haven't been able to put it together in the field. Mm-hmm. And I'm not calling for him to go out, but when I'm watching that game, I don't think Mascherano's got it figured out. It took him a while to get things figured out last year too. This team needs time to gel. You don't have that in CONCACAF Champions Cup, but if you're going to use that as the excuse, new players need time, blah blah blah. Nashville's got Christian Espinoza. They've got Reed Baker-Whitting played a role in that game. There was another new addition. I can't remember who also started for Nashville. Their goalkeeper is looks amazing, but not seasoned. Mm-hmm. So. If you're at Miami, you really have no excuses, and you crash out of this competition. And then they were okay against NYCFC. I would say it's a tough place to play. It's a weird one, so I'm not really beating them with the MLS result. I just think who cares?
It doesn't matter.
Your goal was to win this trophy, and it ended your first tie. Not even you couldn't get past one round.
Yeah, the season almost. Unless they win MLS Cup at this point, the season is an L because how many more chances do you have to qualify for the next Club World Cup?
And I mean, you wanted to open the stadium with potentially a CCC game
against Club America.
America visit. Could we host a final? The answer is no. You're hosting league games, and League's Cup when it gets rolling.
Yeah, it's all down the drain. Well, to wrap it up for me, my winner of the week has got to be LAFC because you look at, they had a 0-0 draw against Austin. But, John, you said this as we were previewing. Aliuense will not be an easy opponent. And, boy, they took LAFC to deep water. They were as Tough. I thought they were going to lose. It looked like LAFC was absolutely on the ropes. They had Son in his head. He was sulking. Buanga was just not. They were fouling him a lot, but it was the right way to play him. They were really teetering on the edge. The guy, that defender on Alajuelense, the young guy with the Dutch last name, that
He
guy
got hurt. Van der Putten.
Yeah,
He got hurt.
He got hurt, but boy, he might have earned himself some money, because I bet there's some people looking at him as a guy that could come to MLS. What did they do, though? David Martinez comes up with the banger. They don't ask how. They ask, did you get through or did you not get through in these knockout rounds? They got through. They've got a big tie scheduled. And guys, they haven't allowed a goal in MLS yet. They still have a shutout streak. They have not allowed a goal. You look at this defense, it is playing so well, and they've got Aaron Long still out injured. You expect that guy to be back at some point. So things could only get better. Eustachio is looking perfect in that midfield. He has a lot to do with the fact that they haven't allowed a goal yet. So LAFC stock up right now, and I think it is time to declare the Columbus Crew as we once knew them dead. The Columbus is over. Nancy is gone. The new guy is not really doing a whole lot. Their forward they signed is really making no big impact. That's a big problem. But he's not doing enough.
Well, Gazdag, man.
Gazdag was a total bust of a signing. They have not won a game, and they have played Portland, Kansas City, Chicago, Nashville, and Toronto. That's not good, guys. To come from those games without a single win.
You guys said, I said, who says no? Crew, Nancy, reunite, and y'all said Nancy. Do you think so?
Yes, I do
I
not
don't
see.
think you want to go back.
What does he want to do?
Take some time off.
Yeah, go on vacation.
Same, buddy,
watch some
but
World Cup games.
Yeah,
I guess it depends on what his Celtic buyout was.
I mean, you can't. Wherever you go, it can't be a failure again. So I don't know.
I also think it has something to do with, again, like we've talked about this a lot on the show, but Bezpachenko's gone. There's new leadership, and it's fully them now.
And they're a victim of their own success, right? Like a team like Columbus, and we saw this with FC Dallas, right? Like those smaller teams that don't have the biggest budgets, they get a really good cycle, and then you kind of expect it to just always happen, and then you realize, oh, all the people get hired away, and you just can't.
But part of the reason that I think we expect it to keep happening with the Crew is that they were making moves like, oh, this Gazdag deal looks like it'll be perfect.
Crew move, yeah.
This forward signing looks like it's exactly what they needed, and it hasn't really materialized into what they needed to do. I mean, also, like, this system will be what Diego Rossi No. He hit the post. They got unlucky in that game.
Sure, but if you don't have a win yet this season, that's not good.
I got an Apple TV alert that was like Trillium Cup second half, and I was like, did they find this on Wikipedia, or is there an old head running this account? I texted the old head who I know works there. He said it wasn't him, so they're definitely getting that off Wikipedia, right?
Claude, you think Claude has studied
Claude.
The MLS obscure rivalry trophies? We're going to be getting Brimstone Cup minute by minute
Cup,
updates.
Yeah, the Atlantic Cup is coming back too. Well, the good news for Columbus, you're 4 points out of a playoff spot, so you're going to be fine after 5 games. Well, guys, that'll wrap us up for this week. We'll have plenty to digest from these continental playoff games, as well as another U.S. national team game and Mexico game. So thanks for listening, and we will catch you next week.